from that point forward, I just knew like I could never let anyone. I remembered sometimes I made a mistake and I was yelled at and belittled in front of the entire company. The micromanagement, the detail-oriented stuff totally shook me.
I was controlling my time by being very strategic in who I take on. I want to hire, but like, when do I hire?
I think it comes down to identifying like how big do you want to grow your firm? Like keep on acquiring clients and you bring on a junior with no experience, you're effectively almost doubling your workload because you got to review all their work. You got to, deal with all the issues that pop up. If you hire another junior after that, you're like tripling your workload. So it depends on the objective of the business and what you want to pull yourself out of. And that's going to dictate who you should be bringing on.
All right, here we go again. Welcome to the first episode. We're back. The first episode of the ThefunCPA pod. I'm rebranding the original podcast, and we're going at it, and we're going to talk about public accounting, all things public accounting, the journey of creating your own firm, maybe some folks who are already in the firms and just talking about their experience, and just general accounting conversations in a low-key, kind of informal way. And today's guest is incredible. Met you on LinkedIn, Ryan Lazanis.
That's right, Yuri. Very nice
Awesome.
to be here. Thank you very much.
Yes, and today, as you're the first one, you're the guinea pig, I guess they will say, of my first episode. And uniquely enough, you're also in Canada.
That's right.
So we're going to touch on a bunch of things here in the public accounting space. We can even talk, we'll talk about the differences from the Canadian side to the US side. I'm sure there's much of the same, but why don't we get started with your journey? It's very interesting. I won't reveal too much. We'll let you share it in your best ability to do it in 1 minute.
And all right, go. Let's go. Time me. So yeah, I'm a CPA, born and raised in Montreal, Canada. I started a cloud accounting firm in 2013, one of the first or earliest cloud accounting firms in North America when I kicked it off. Had lots of great ideas about how to modernize the way accounting firms operated, but I had very little experience. I was trained as a staff accountant, educated in accounting, but had no clue how to price services, sell services, market services, run and manage a team. So I made every mistake possible, but realized I was more of a systems thinker and was able to develop a system that took my firm from scratch all the way to acquisition in just 5 years. It was acquired by a large corporate services firm based in the Isle of Man, which was interesting. And I immediately started Future Firm after that to be the resource I wish I always had when I was running my firm so that I could avoid all the costly trial and error and, just create a business that gave me a great lifestyle that didn't require me to work crazy nights or weekends. And with Future Firm, we create a lot of content, blog, podcast, newsletter, stuff that's actionable and practical. But our main business activity is our Future Firm Accelerate online coaching and community program, which has over 750 firms from around the globe that get self-paced training on how to scale, systematize, and reduce their workload. They get access to coaching, and they also get access to an amazing community of modern firm owners globally that they can tap into and exchange tips and tactics and stuff like that. So that's a bit about my professional career. I might have been a little bit over a minute there, Yuri.
It's all right, just a little bit. I didn't time you, but I just kind of winged it in my head. It sounded like you were pretty close to it. That was pretty good. I want to unpack some of that because I think there's a ton of value in your experience that you've had over your career. So you started your firm in 2013, and let the listeners know how long were you in like public accounting before you launched your own firm?
So I was part of a very small accounting firm in Montreal for about 5 years. I was a junior accountant, senior accountant, got my CPA designation there. And, there was 2 partners, myself, a bookkeeper, and 1 or 2 receptionists. So I always kind of gravitated towards the smaller firms. I never really wanted to work in the large firms.
Interesting.
And so I worked there for 5 years. Then I went into industry for 6 months. I really hated it. I was an assistant controller and just realized I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. So there was just a couple of experiences I had that I was really not happy about. And I just wanted to, own my own thing and do things my way.
Yeah, I mean that's the typical vibe. I had the same thing for me, in my journey, except you did two places. You're pretty say like, okay, small firm started there. Let's try something totally different, which is industry, and then go out on your own. Me, I was like, I'm gonna try to find this perfect firm. So I jumped around seven of them.
Okay, wow.
Seven public accounting firms ranging all different sizes. You got small, up about 100 people, up to EY, which is where I started my career. And I mean, they're all the same. And that's that's the high level bottom line. But interestingly enough, for you, so you spent 6 months in that. Just out of curiosity, I mean, what was it that you disliked so much about that jump between the two?
The micromanagement, the detail-oriented stuff. I joined because I was attracted to the CEO who had some like entrepreneurial awards. I really liked that kind of aspect of it. But then I was just stuck in an accounting department doing recurring stuff. The person who I was reporting to, I remember, I remembered sometimes I made a mistake and I was yelled at and belittled in front of the entire company, which totally shook me.
Wow.
I'd never had this kind of experience before. And from that point forward, I just knew like I could never let anyone, I needed to control my own destiny. And I always had like starting a business in mind. My father was a business owner his whole life. And, so that was always in mind, but this just kind of accelerated things for me.
So I'm curious, in the smaller firm, you never had an experience like that where it was like, rougher around the edges, a little more old school?
No, not really. No, I mean, I was just kind of there doing my own thing, right? Like I'm in the corner, churning out files every single day, standing by the photocopy machine, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
That was my life at that firm.
You were doing that thing. And then when you came over there, was it a big jump as far as technical knowledge wise, or did you feel prepared for that jump?
Not super prepared. I mean, I never really considered myself a great accountant. I think I have other skills that are far better than that. So the accounting thing never really clicked with me. So I was just really going through the motions of what I was taught and trained. And then I had to kind of learn things a little bit of a different way when I headed to industry. But yeah, I mean, I was never passionate or great when it came to accounting.
Yeah, I feel that. Can we just talk real quick? Can we just talk about the differences in, like, I guess, tax and deadlines, and a little bit just super high level between the US and Canada? Because I think that part is interesting. I mean, it's interesting to me. So definitely.
So if you want a much easier life when it comes to running a firm, you should just move to Canada.
Okay, tell me about that. How
so? The issues are the same. Okay, there's one main difference when it comes to tax is we have one tax season and US has two, right? Like you have extensions where extensions doesn't exist in Canada. So the individuals, they all have to have their taxes filed by April 30th. There's no extensions. Okay, so that makes things a little bit easier, truthfully, because we're not managing two busy seasons. But other than that, I mean, the issues are the same. Like, like I said, I have a program that coaches hundreds of firms globally, and they all face, not just in Canada and the US. I have firms in Africa, I have firms in Asia, I have firms in Australia, all over the world, Caribbean, and they all face the exact same issues. It's how do I run a good business? Right? How do I price? How do I sell? How do I market? How do I streamline and systematize? It's the same exact problems. But specifically on the tax side of things, that's the one thing that stands out between US and Canada.
Yeah. And as far as, it's interesting you said globally and everybody faces the same problems. I'm assuming there's also the shortage of good help problems, the lack of ability to find somebody to do that. But really, I think, from what it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it a lot of solopreneurs trying to make that jump and trying to figure out how to scale, like, and you kind of help them out in that regard with Future Firm?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of experience I had when I started my firm. I had the idea, more freedom, more flexibility, create a better lifestyle for myself, for my family. And, I had this training and education in accounting. And we immediately kind of jump into practitioner mode when we start our own firm. It's like, okay, I need to pick some clients and I need to pick up some clients and do the work for them. But then we get, okay, like, how do I price this? And how do I get more clients and more of the ones that I want? And what do I do when I have to hire somebody, and who should I hire, and how do I manage them? And we're not trained in any of this stuff, so we either have to figure it out on our own and go through a lot of trial and error, or seek other resources elsewhere. So luckily, I think I was bad at the accounting, but I was good at the business side. Like, it took me time to figure it out, but I was able to figure it out. There's some people that really struggle to figure it out, and that's where Future Firm Accelerate comes in. Is don't figure that out on your own.
Yeah.
We're a resource that can assist you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let me jump back to chronologically, and we'll go to the moment where you left. So you left that industry job that you hated. That you were there for 6 months, and you started. And what was your firm called?
Zen Accounting.
Zen Accounting. All right. So you started Zen Accounting, and now you're in this journey of public accounting, or accounting entrepreneurship. And I know you told me offline before we started that you had some issues. You learned yourself a lot of the stuff on the go.
Yep.
Can you just highlight some of, like, in that first 3 years? And I say first 3 years because that's where I'm at.
Yep.
What were those things that you struggled with at your firm in those first 3 years?
Pretty much everything. But I think, like, I went into this with the idea that, so people weren't running their firms online in 2013. People, like,
True.
There was no Zoom. I was using Skype. There was no QuickBooks Online. So, like, none of these things really existed. But I went into this thinking, what are all the pain points that clients deal with when dealing with their accounting firm? And how could I reverse all those? Okay, so one of the things that came to mind is people don't like the way that accountants bill. They don't like getting surprise bills and hourly billing. So
True.
I advertised packages on my website from day one, fixed monthly subscription pricing. And people were even able to sign up using their credit card without even speaking to anyone, which was a terrible idea.
Wow.
But I had some good ideas, but implementing and executing was definitely off. So I think I had great packages to start with, but my pricing was like $150 a month for everything included.
Wow.
Unlimited consulting, tax,
150 a month? Then sign me up for that.
I mean, it was terrible. I posted my packages on LinkedIn to show everybody, like, don't do this.
Yeah.
So I did that like maybe a month or so ago, but yeah, like, I was just basically giving it away. Or another thing that stands out is when I had to hire somebody. Okay, who do I hire? How do I interview? How do I even manage? I had no clue how to manage this person, and obviously they turned over very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So, like, the people side, I had no clue what I was doing. The pricing side, I had no clue what I was doing. The marketing, I mean, the trial and error that I went through in the first couple of years was, some of the things that I went through was just, like, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Creative things, but things that would obviously not work.
Yeah. I think a lot of people like yourself and myself who want the goal, which I think for me, the goal, right, has always been and still is, I want the lifestyle firm. I want the flexibility. I don't want the firm to work me. I want to be able to control my hours and do all that. Everybody strives for that. But just like you said, when you're starting off that firm, the thing you want to do most is you want to jump in and go, servicing as many clients as possible to bring up that revenue. I usually tell people, like, hey, just do some contract work. Forget about these clients. Don't go in trying to acquire. Go contract somewhere, work at some firm, and build and picture your vision while you're getting some money. Because that's the biggest challenge, right? Like, you got to live. I don't know if you had a family or, if you had kids then. I had a son already when I started my firm. Like, I needed money, man. Like, I got bills to pay. So, so contracting was the way to do that while I grow the firm in the way that I want, and eventually eased off that contracting. And I think that was, for me, the way to develop that kind of end goal for myself. So without the pressure, that was my approach. But the $150 a month, that's interesting. So did you, when you did that, I'm sure you had a lot of people sign up. Did you eventually end up raising that price?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have like a ton of people sign up right from the get-go, but I mean, what was cool was the site was like an e-commerce site, so people could sign up with their credit card without speaking to me. So, like, the first few deals I got, I was like, wow, like, I'm getting people sign up like just like that. That's pretty cool. But I mean, it didn't last that long because there was no scope, there was no nothing. It was just pretty much a free for all, $150, $200 a month. You get like unlimited
Wow.
everything. And then it just came down to a process of educating myself on how to price and how to sell and how to scope. So it was a long educational process.
Yeah. And how did you, when you landed on that, what was, when you sold your firm?
Mm-hmm.
And just for the listeners know, you sold your firm around 2018, had a 7-figure exit, which is incredible. Right before that exit, and as the conversations when you were found, what was your fee then a month? And how did you do the pricing towards the end of your journey when you were already learned, as if you will?
I'd say, I mean, look, we had the range. Our starting price would be, this was 5 years ago, $600 a month. And, we go up to $5-6 grand a month. And our sweet spot was probably in like the $1,250 a month range.
$1,250. And was it primarily
books, included books. We're dealing with small businesses. It included the books, tax, a little bit of advisory work, and some support during the year.
Okay. And did you feel like, did you have a limit? Because I'm very, very curious on this part. Did you have a limit once you got to the end and you were almost, selling? Did you have a limit on how many times people can talk to you?
Yeah.
Versus unlimited. So, for example, in a $1,250 package a month, what was it, like 4 meetings a year, or how did you limit that part?
Well, what we did is we had like a bronze, silver, gold strategy. And
Okay.
like we would kind of tweak the packages a bit. We would have like our base formula for all packages. The base formula is we have to control the books. We have to do a little bit of advisory during the year, and we got to do like the year end and tax work. So that also came with support. And on like the less expensive plans, there was like limited amount of, let's say, CPA support. Whereas the more premium plans would have unlimited amounts of CPA support, and we would define what is included in unlimited.
That's good.
Which is basically, we can chat, but after the conversation, if there's something else that you'd like us to do that's not included in your scope of services, that becomes an extra mandate, basically. So I'm trying to think back about like how many interactions a year, but I think we limited it to like number of emails or number of calls, stuff of that nature. And we weren't like super, super strict on that number, but it was more to develop the expectations. So if we saw that like someone was kind of like taking advantage, then we would prompt them and say, okay, it's time to move up, or it's time to kind of respect the scope that's included here. Otherwise, we have to start charging you for it.
So I like that idea, but like, conceptually and like when you're thinking about it, like how you're actually doing, how did you actually keep track of those interactions? And like,
we didn't keep track, and I didn't want to keep track. And it was really just to develop expectations. First, it's, a bit of a marketing tool where it's like, okay, these are the 3 packages. These are the different levels of support. So they can say, well, I need a lot of support, so I'm going to choose the more expensive package. But then when it came down to it, when we signed the client, we would have a meeting with the team that would be involved with the client, say, okay, like this is what's included. This is what's in their plan. And, you'll know the kind of clients that come to you, 40 times a month with like these super complex questions.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, the team member would bubble that up and say, okay, like this is becoming problematic. And then we would have to talk to the client about enforcing the support that's included going forward.
Got it. Okay. So that's really what I was trying to get to. I was trying to figure out, but so it was basically a team thing.
Correct.
So when your team members sitting there going, all right, this guy's annoying the crap out of me for, multiple times a month, it's getting ridiculous. Let's ping them for the next,
then we look at the engagement letter, what's included, and then we talk about scope to the client.
Got it. Okay. That's solid strategy. Now, when you sold, also like right before, how many people did you have working for you?
About 15.
15. Okay. So you had you built up a firm that was bigger than the first firm that you started at.
That is true.
Impressive. And what advice would you have for somebody that, like me, is currently more or less solo with like a kind of, on and off bookkeeper? What advice would you have for that first hire? I'm at this at 3 years. I'm okay. Like I was controlling my time by being very strategic in who I take on. So high fees for me, less clients, but and maintaining under 40 hours a week all year round. But I'm at this point now where, I'm still under 40 hours a week. Right now I work about 10 to 15 hours a week.
Okay, that's great.
But yeah, it's great. And I'm accomplishing that. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I want to hire But like, when do I hire?
Mm-hmm.
That's really the crux of a lot of folks' problems. But what would your advice be to someone like me?
So I can go based on what my experience is and what I generally recommend, but ultimately it comes down to the objectives of the firm owner and what they're looking for out of their business, right?
Yeah.
So, like for me, my first two hires were experienced CPAs.
Wow.
Why? Because I hated accounting, I wasn't good at it, and I wanted to divest myself of as much of that stuff as possible so I could focus on other areas of the business. So I
Yeah.
chose to um, undergo, like, for the first year or so, low profits and poor cash flow,
Yeah.
which worked out well in the end. So it does come with some risk, but it worked out very well in the end because I was able to pull myself out of the stuff that I wasn't good at, didn't provide leverage to the business, and stuff I didn't like.
Yeah.
So I think it comes down to identifying, like, how big do you want to grow your firm? And
Yeah.
if you're happy, like, I have some firms in the program, they're happy with, 150 grand a year revenue or 200 grand a year revenue. There's nothing wrong with that because
Yeah.
it gives them, they can keep things really small, and they can, they have perhaps a little bit more flexibility in some cases than others. And they don't necessarily, and they like doing the client work. So they don't need to hire a very experienced person. They could bring on just a virtual assistant or a part-time bookkeeper. So a lot of the firms I'm dealing with, they do want to get to that next level. They maybe don't want to like build a massive empire, but they want to get to seven-figure firm and up. And in a lot of those cases, I'm recommending like a manager level pretty early on. So you can take yourself out of the day-to-day, because if
Yeah.
you're like keep on acquiring clients and you bring on a junior with no experience, you're effectively almost doubling your workload because you got to review all their work. You got to, deal
Smart.
with all the issues that pop up. If you hire another junior after that, you're like tripling your workload. So that's why I'm saying like to bring on a manager earlier than expected. However, it depends on the objective of the business. I usually recommend some kind of capacity planning exercise to like map out where your time is going and what you want to pull yourself out of. And that's going to dictate who you should be bringing on.
That's interesting. Really fascinating. Let me just continue on because I'll just run it with my firm and right now I am a more technical guy.
Mm-hmm.
My bookkeeping experience is not as ideal,
Yeah.
is not as good as the tax side of things. Very comfortable, very strong in the tax, not so comfortable, not so strong in the bookkeeping. So I got on a part-time bookkeeper to help me out with that. Review the reports, review all of that. Like I said, my pricing is high. I also offer 3 packages, but mine is monthly or quarterly or tax only.
Okay.
So interestingly, I've seen a mix. I've seen folks that break down their, once a year tax prep fee into months.
Yeah.
Into a monthly payment. I just collect it at the prep time. But for now, like I said, I'm not super crazy busy. So it's a hard thing to do. I enjoy the tax piece of it. Don't so much enjoy the bookkeeping piece of it. But I also enjoy selling.
Yeah.
I'm at around 250,000. On the gross revenue side from everything, and it's good. But obviously, everybody wants to grow. So it's like, do I hire someone? And then again, like, where do I hire? But you're right, the junior. So to me, somebody in that kind of scenario.
So you don't like the bookkeeping, you don't want to manage the bookkeeping, you don't want to deal with the booking. So like one possibility is a more senior level bookkeeping resource where you don't have to be as involved in that. So it is more expensive.
Yeah.
But it does afford you with the possibility of pulling yourself out of more of that stuff so you can focus on the tax and the selling.
Yeah. What I did was fairly recently, I actually partnered up with a bookkeeping firm that is an outsourcing firm.
That's good.
Because what I did, I just, to some extent, I was like, yes, it's great that they're doing the work here internally, my part-time bookkeeper, but I'm like, I need somebody with more ownership, with more resources and more knowledge. Somebody who's an expert in bookkeeping that has a team. Outsource that piece, sell that, and then just focus on the tax stuff. So that's how I temporarily resolved that issue.
That's a possibility.
It is more expensive, 100%.
It is more expensive. It does open up some complexities as well because you're managing another organization.
Yes. But truthfully, I'm so far so good. I'm very fortunate that it was she's a very high skilled bookkeeper, very on top of everything. Don't have to manage that necessarily, and everything is onshore, so to speak, in the U.S. So that's also great, on that standpoint. So that's kind of on my take of my way of doing things. But it is interesting. I always like to hear the different aspects. Now, kind of let's touch as we kind of aim towards your next endeavor in your career. So you sell Zen Accounting, and that's done. You told me offline that you stayed on for another year, and then you basically said, okay, I'm good here. And then you ended up starting immediately the Future Firm.
I knew before I sold what I wanted to do.
Okay, got it.
I knew before I sold. I knew because I was getting approached by different firms, small, mid-sized, the largest firms out there that wanted to acquire, merge, something along those lines. So I had a lot of possibilities, and it forced me to really think about what I wanted to do, continue on or get into one of these other types of relationships. And when I clarified what I really wanted to do, which was to help other accounting firms and to avoid, because I've always been frustrated with our profession. I feel our profession does almost nothing to support us. I've been extremely frustrated and vocal about that. And, I wanted to help. I wanted to help other firms. And I, again, like I said, wanted to be the resource I wish I always had. I feel our profession should be doing a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. Now it's a good thing they don't, because I have another business as a result. So that's why I started it. And I started it. I knew as soon as I sold. So I sold, I took a long trip. I went to the Middle East, went into the middle of the desert somewhere, cleared my head, came back and started Future Firm immediately after that.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So did you implement a lot of the stuff that you learned at your firm now, like when you're restructuring the mentality of the firm, right? Now you're going from a firm providing services and accounting to Future Firm still providing services, but in a very different way.
Very different.
Did you take a lot of those, lessons learned there to this? And what would you say was the best marketing that has worked now at Future Firm? Because that's different than obviously selling to clients.
So one of the things that I did really well in my accounting firm was grew the firm through digital marketing, where the digital marketing landscape was not nearly as crowded, but was able to carry that expertise over to Future Firm and kind of level that up. But I mean, I developed a lot of the educational material and training based on my personal experience, based on and then I've spoken to hundreds of firms around the world, and I've seen the same repeating patterns of why firms struggle and make mistakes, and they're almost identical to what I went through. So I'm able to just help them get past that trial and error phase a lot more quickly. And I had some ideas about what I wanted the program to look like, but ultimately it came down to just a combination of, self-paced training, surrounding each member in our program with community component that people can help each other out, and some coaching when people need to pick an expert's brain. So I don't know if I answered your question, Yuri. I might have gone in a couple directions there, but in terms of digital marketing, we're very big on content, actionable, practical content through a podcast, our newsletter, almost 10,000 readers on our newsletter, and our blog. So social SEO and social media as well. So content is what does it for us.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's how I kind of discovered you too. That was through LinkedIn. Is where I found you at, and one of the posts that most resonated with me, the one that made me think I got to get this guy on my show, was this one where I forgot the name of that firm or the name of the person, but you shared the story of this lady who basically grew her firm to I think over 7 figures or something like that, on her own, and with the help of Future Firm and everything, and it was like a little bit of a kind of like a testimonial, and still controlling her hours, and that is the dream. Right. That's the dream. And so doing that, sharing those experiences, I think is the answer to my question, right? As far as how you're able to do that. You share the journeys of your clients and the testimonials, and that's what does that. But that was a cool story.
That's what and that's kind of what you're doing here on this show, is sharing the stories of others. People are interested about the stories of those they can relate to. we're like the case studies and the testimonials and the proof that we're showing. I think we could that could be a marketing activity, but at the same time, we can make it interesting for those that are consuming it, right? So like,
Yeah.
sure, this is a case study for our program, but at the same time, could we tell the story of this individual in a way that is interesting for our audience?
Yeah.
And you know, that I think I know the one that you're talking about because we got a lot of activity on that particular post.
Yeah. Yeah. And engaging the engagement itself,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I'm here doing this show, doing this rebrand, gauging the engagement on LinkedIn for me,
Mm-hmm.
which is where my biggest following is, to see where everybody wants this information. Everybody wants to learn more about the public accounting space. They want to feel heard a lot of times if they're in firms. I get messages about people wanting to launch their own firms and how to go about that. And for me, I learned so much just on my own journey,
Mm-hmm.
and having a resource would be huge for me too. And I think Future Firm is definitely a great part of that too. And I saw recently you partnered up with Ignition. Is that right?
Yeah, we did. We launched. So I was a very early Ignition customer. I might have been. It's possible I was maybe even the first Ignition customer
Wow.
in North America in 2013. So I've really been a big fan of their product, their team, the culture. I've had good relationships with them for over 10 years now, and
Amazing.
yeah, so we partnered with them last week, and basically we have a bundled product at a pretty good discounted price for anyone that's interested in, you know, Ignition is a tool that's going to help streamline certain aspects of your workflows, but sometimes the educational component might be lacking. Like if we want to streamline like 3-tiered pricing, right?
Yeah.
Well, we need to know how to package those 3 tiers and we need to know how to price them. So we're the educational and support aspect of things, and they are the technology component.
Mm,
And we're basically combining the two products into
I love that.
one for, you know, a pretty heavily discounted price.
I love that. I think that's a huge part because a lot of times we struggle, like, same as I was saying, for me, I got 3 packages, monthly, quarterly, tax only. On the quarterly side, when I'm ready to, implement that, if the client wants to sign up for that, I just had one sign up today.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're, it's $2,000 a quarter for that particular client.
Mm-hmm.
And now I got to figure out how I'm going to build this. So I love the fact that, for me right now, truthfully and fully honestly, I'm going into QuickBooks. I'm sending out the invoice every quarter. I have a reminder to myself to do so, but it's not automated.
Yeah.
And so if there's, and I believe Ignition, and I think there's a couple other ones out there, but, is going to help out to set that up from the start and have that ability to they just send it.
And automation is great, but sometimes you don't need the automation. It depends, right?
Yeah.
It depends on like the volume that we're doing. Sometimes a manual process is just fine for the time being.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying that, because I think a lot of people there's a big push in the profession to automation, to say automation is everything and you need it. Yes, in certain parts, in the parts that hurt, but like sending an invoice, and quite frankly, it's not that bad. But if there was some help in that regard, I think that'll be huge too. As we wrap this up, I want to ask you 2 questions based on everything we talked about. Mm-hmm. And the first question to wrap up with is, if you were to go back in time to your 2013 self, or to somebody who's starting a firm, what would be the number one advice that you would give them as they start out?
So yeah, I mean, I've had that question before, and my answer is always the same. It's to really define what you're seeking, right? So that was a mistake I made, where I started an accounting firm because it was, as I started my first business because I had the idea of flexibility and freedom in mind, but I never really quantified that. Like, how much money do I actually need to be happy? And how much time do I want to be working per week? And what do I want to do with that time? Like, we just get into it so quickly and just start bringing clients on board and not really thinking about the ideal end state. And it just kind of snowballs into some kind of chaotic mess at some point in time. And then we have a hard time digging ourselves out. Like a lot of firms that I speak with now, they're making them, when I ask, okay, well, how much money do you need to live your ideal lifestyle? And they're saying, well, I already make that money. So it's just a question of like optimizing for the time being spent in the business then, right? So like we get into this never ending chase for more and more and more, when really maybe we have enough of what we need and we just need to optimize other aspects of the business to reduce workload. So it's really about defining what you want the end goal to look like a little bit more clearly, and then creating a plan to get there.
I love it. I had a post on that recently, actually, and it echoed exactly what you just said. It's start with what is your ideal firm, and what is it like? What does it mean to you to have flexibility? Like for you, Ryan, like what after your 5 years experience in Zen Accounting, what was your ideal week like, hours wise worked?
Well. Now, I mean, I have what's ideal for me, right? So I have an online business where I have a clear calendar, and I, live in Montreal where it's freezing cold in the winter, and I can go overseas for 8 weeks and do some work from there. And, for me, that's the flexibility. So, I'm working maybe anywhere from, I'm probably working around, let's say, 30 hours a week, 25 to 30 hours a week.
Nice.
And I'm very happy with that workload. So yeah, for me, that's that. And I'm working on the type of stuff I want to do. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. That's a huge combination. 25, 30 hours a week leaves you enough time to be flexible, to do whatever you want to do, work out. Looks like you work out, work out, do your thing. And, and that. The second question and the last thing we're going to wrap up with is, I wanted to know, about you. What is it that you want the people out there to know, whether it's about Future Firm or whatever it is? Tell us a little bit about your own, plug and plug yourself, so to speak.
All right, let's go into the sales pitch. All right,
let's do it.
I think, look, ultimately, I have a lot of helpful free content that we really try to make very actionable, practical stuff that you can just swipe and use, or open your eyes to different ways to doing things in your firm. And if you're interested in that, you should join my newsletter. It's a free weekly it's twice a week. I send an email twice a week, and you can go to futurefirm.co/newsletter. And for anyone that's maybe interested in taking the next step, that need faster help to when it comes to making progress in their business, to check out our Future Firm Accelerate coaching and community program.
Amazing. And everybody, give a follow to Ryan Lazanis. Ton of value that you add every day to the folks out there. Appreciate everything you're doing for small business owners, to those of us struggling out there in the public accounting space. Thank you so much for joining the show, and I appreciate you a lot. Looking forward to seeing more content from you. Yuri. Everybody go to Future Firm and check out what Ryan's got to show you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it.